because we had all of the semesters, we did start to build a method and also build familiarity with the students. So that's something that's nice here, I think, for both the teachers and the students.
Dobrý den, já se jmenuji Regina Loukotová a toto je náš architektonický podcast, který se jmenuje ARCHIPCAST. A dnes to bude v angličtině, takže já překlopím do angličtiny. Jinak vedu školu architektury 13. rokem, která už úspěšně která úspěšně působí v Praze už 13. rokem s magisterským a bakalářským programem. Today we have a guest, Elan Fessler. Hello, Elan.
Hello.
Our tutor since 10 years, I think, more than
this
that.
This is the 11th,
yeah. 11th year. He's an American architect, but living and working here in Prague. So my first question, as usual, would be, why did you decide to study architecture, Elan?
I'm going to have to remember all the way back. Actually, by coincidence, I found my school application paper from 24 years ago, written with my naive handwriting of the high school students. And what struck me looking at it again, I thought at the time, and I guess I still do, that architecture was a kind of umbrella. I liked it that it was an umbrella for society, for history, for philosophy, for art, and so I was interested in all of these things, and it seems like a suitable cover for them.
Interesting, because I imagine architecture more as a platform from which different professions and fields are arising, while you imagine it as still imagine as an umbrella.
Maybe somewhere I'm in between the two now. How do they meet? The umbrella and the ground.
Yeah, so your decision was like coincidental. You thought, and have you been considering other fields too?
Well, I'm still interested in philosophy and art, but architecture, I guess it seemed like the right crossroads between all of these interests.
Yeah. I do agree. I have the same feeling, but probably it would be interesting to also say something about your background, actually where you studied architecture and so on.
In New York City, in the belly button of Manhattan, I would say right there, 7th Street, Cooper Square, in the foundation building of the Cooper Union, which was once the tallest building in New York City, 160 years ago. In this ship, in the middle of a rock.
Probably I just would mention at this point that Cooper Union, the famous school of architecture, was led in a certain period of time by John Hajduk, who has actually realized here in Prague a few projects. One of them is the statue for Jan Palach, or it's called the statue for
House of the Suicide and House of the Mother of the Suicide.
Yeah, these two. So
náměstí Jana Palacha.
Yeah. So can you tell us more how it was for you, coming to New York from Pittsburgh, I presume?
Yeah.
And being new into this big city, studying architecture. What did you like? What did you dislike? Were there people like from all over the world, or were there more Americans only?
More so Americans. A lot of New Yorkers, because the agenda for the school was to have higher education be affordable even for the poorest. So there were a lot of New Yorkers. But the city wasn't so unfamiliar to me because I have family there, and my uncle was a couple blocks away. But it was in such a big city. I stayed within a few block radius, and the whole city it's similar like here at ARCHIP in Prague, because the city is also the campus. The whole city and the school, it's working together. As we have projects that are Prague-based often, we had a lot of New York City based. So you go in the city for your work. You know?
Yeah, indeed. And you also had your studios project then, and other complementary classes, or how did it work there?
These structures and history, some kind of extra courses that were theoretical. Strong part was drawing class. We had a lot of time spent on drawing class, hand drawing. And it was interesting there because we have the drawing teacher, Sugasao, wants to teach architects to draw. Has the book, we have it in the library actually. Architects Draw. And our structures teacher didn't want to teach engineers structures, he wanted to teach architects structures. Because the architects think a little bit differently about these things. Yeah,
Interesting. And did you have chance also to collaborate with students who were like older or in a higher grades?
We had one big room. It was first years, second years, third years, fourth years, fifth years, but one big room. So you had to wait for the older kids to go to a class to like sneak over and see what do they do, you know, because you're all the way on the other end. And even also that's art school and engineering. We shared a building with the artists. So in the elevator, you'd see the colorful people who look like they're having a great time, and then we would be the tired people trying to find black clothes.
Nice. And were there any like significant teachers or classes which you remember till today, or
all of them? Yeah, because it was the whole environment. It's like we lived on one floor in one room, and that particular layout, which was also planned by John Haydick, was really interesting because the exhibition space where we would have our pin-ups was located between two elevators. So you never knew when the doors would open and from which side. So it was a kind of theatrical or dramatic environment at any moment. And it's all white, and then it would disappear, and then it would reappear.
And did your school collaborate with other schools too, or did you have some? I would say nowadays we have Erasmus students, you know, coming over for one semester. Probably some guest students from other schools coming over to Cooper Union.
We would sometimes have older students from Europe or some different schools. Already they would be in their fourth year and they would come join us in second year, let's say. But not for one semester.
And can you tell us, or can you share with us some of the project briefs you got in your school? What were the tasks like?
I could probably, just from us, because every year was different. When I got there, they had just finished 5 years of this analysis studio where they looked at Palladio and Los and Corbusier and Borromini, and they would take these objects and they would have to figure out some of the structures that were embedded in them and how they can then abstract those out and produce other structures. So I didn't participate in that studio, but I was quite lucky in the sense that there was a 5-year review of work. So I got to see 5 years worth of work before I got there. And our first years we had a cube. We had to occupy a cube for a body. So the angle or position an imaginary cube into the city and pull out the morphology from that and then reprogram it according to, we each got a different artist. It was a filmmaker, a writer, or a musician. So I had Jorge Luis Borges, and I had to produce a house in the spirit of his work through positioning an imaginary cube in the city. That was for first year, and we had these kind of very experimental or very speculative projects. It wasn't like, no toilets, no doors, no code, no anything like that. It was.
It came later, or not? What was your diploma project about?
It was Vítězné, náměstí. This quadrant, and I was interested in it as a kind of threshold between the airport and the city center, because I came by plane to Prague and I thought, oh, it's nice, and what's this funny place here that's missing? And the circle doesn't work, so the idea was to make a type of block that could link into some of the missing pieces or some of the strange follies. These objects don't really fit each other there, and link into the metro. So the program was part university and part public spaces like exhibitions of student works, and part also hostel for visiting people. And it was supposed to be a crossroads at that point, between the outside world and the city of Prague.
Interesting. So slowly after you completed your education, then was it right after your studies that you applied for Fulbright scholarship? Or
it was during my studies that I applied and didn't get it. So I did it again a year later, and then I got it.
And then you came here to Prague, and then you started teaching with us. So can you say just a few words about your beginnings at our school, whom you collaborated with, and how was it actually coming to Prague, and first as a Fulbright scholar, then as an active architect as well as a tutor?
Well, there was a little bit of space in between there where I moved to a little village in the country to shovel coal and get familiar with what's not inside Prague, which was a good experience and helped to learn Czech also. And it was interesting for me because they obviously the types of cities, the types of buildings, the history doesn't have any kind of analog in the United States. Even the layouts, and the different types of squares. So there was a lot of research after the Fulbright into the Czech landscape, and to try to draw out from it something that can be made contemporary. From the forms, from the way things are put together, from these layers of accumulation, and how to maybe translate it into something contemporary. That was really interesting for me out in the country. Yeah.
And was it also the topic of your Fulbright scholarship?
No, Fulbright was. I was interested, and this was at the time. This was 2007. So focus in the end at Pankratz, and it was this question at the moment about the skyscrapers, and also if UNESCO would rescind the status of heritage because things like this. So it was a question of what to do with these inner city brownfields, in the sense of how to expand the historical city further. So the project was focused on an alternate planning concept for Pankratz Plain that would prioritize kind of communication with Vyšehrad and with Prague Castle, because there are axial alignments and also other elements of the surroundings.
Yes, and becoming one of ARCHIP tutors. Can you describe probably your beginnings, or you can jump directly to what's going on now in our education system, or not system, sorry, in our way of teaching or our way of educating in architecture?
Well, so 10 years, 20 semesters, it's 300 or more students. But basically almost every semester except for one was with Jan Schindler. So this was also good because we have small students. We have them more than once, which was different from in my school. We can sometimes have the same students 2 or even 3 or more times. And then because we had all of the semesters, we did start to build a method and also build familiarity with the students. So that's something that's nice here, I think, for both the teachers and the students. This was fun to figure out how to do it, to develop some of the earlier ideas. Sometimes we went back to some strategies that we were trying out a few semesters back, such as giving them, like we did last semester, giving them no site, no ground, no context, and having them develop the architectural project to be very site-specific, but starting just from a room, with no world around it. And this was an interesting method,
That's, as you mentioned in Cooper Union with the speculation and speculative brief. I think that's going more towards that direction, isn't it? But let's jump into sharing, the topic we have now for our students. We started actually in September with sharing as a topic. So can you describe more what are you doing in your studio, or what you were doing actually last semester, and how did you actually interpret the topic of sharing to your students, or how did you work?
Well, the practical brief was more affordable housing in the city center. So to make the city center more dense and to produce more affordable units, let's say. So in the sense, the sharing. So there'd be the units that aren't tiny, but they have secondary program where that's where the sharing, let's say, could be inside of the objects. So that was the sharing, so we started with planning units and thinking in terms of module or prefabricated construction to try to lower the costs.
And then going, from inside out.
From one unit, and then you have to of different types of people, and then that gets clustered around circulation in some way, which suggests a type of form, and that form doesn't belong in certain places because it's its own kind of thing, but it does belong in a specific place. So then the question is how to work out that form into the site. So from mostly rectangles and L-shaped rooms, we got really unique and site-specific figures.
Good. And this semester, it's not only your studio, but most of our studios are again collaborating with the Y Factory, led by Winnie Maas from TU Delft, and we are working on the visions for Prague. Last year we worked for Dreams and Visions for the Czech Republic. Now we do something which is called Prague 2, but it's not Vinohrady and the area around here in Albertov, but it's like Visions, Dreams for Prague. So could you say a few words about this brief?
Well, this semester it's me and Zuzana Drautova. So, and our title for it, it's Heritage of the Future. And so for this question of what to do with Prague tomorrow, the method we're using, we go back 1,000 years or more as far as we can and see how Prague got to today. And then we will jump to Prague in 2150 on the assumption that the city doubles or more in population and other things change. And then we'll work our way backwards to tomorrow. So that's how we're trying to envision, to plan not exactly for now, but to plan for what may be after now.
That's what architects should do. I think, we are planning. So
it's also an opportunity to bypass any kind of code or anything like that. So we don't have to, because it is a limit, and so if we pause it for a moment, we see what's possible.
I'm looking forward to our results, because each studio kind of interprets the brief a bit differently. So it will be a kind of interesting assemblage of different approaches. Probably my last question for today would be about what's going on in architecture, urban planning, landscape architecture, let's say, nowadays. Do you want to comment on something which is going on at the moment? Some interesting, either buildings, competitions, school briefs, whatever.
I'm more focused on the architecture. Yeah, I even continue to argue that it should be architecture that's defining the city and not the urban planning limiting the architecture. And so I'm curious then on like the structure of things and how things relate and how things can be organized. So I'm not sure about what's interesting now, where things are going. But what I am interested in, like with technology, we're always changing. With the technology comes in the architecture, and some of these new things that are emerging, not just with the virtual space, but like, for instance, blockchain, like the logics of these things. How I think that it will end up changing our culture and society, and so I'm interested in that, like the way that could yield different sorts of forms or different ways of thinking about how to produce architecture, because there's, like, in our phones, or you get a link elsewhere. You can jump here and there and here and there, and there are multiple parallel things operating at once. Pieces of them are inside of each other. There's embedded links within code. And this type of logic, each thing is moving in its own dynamic field, and sometimes they crisscross, and they mix, and they splice, and they separate. And this kind of thinking, I'm just curious about, because it seems to me to be a different logic than like a Ford machine serial. And so I'm just curious about what could we do with this idea of splicing other links into known codes that can produce references elsewhere. Yeah.
Elsewhere, you mean also the
in
physical?
No, in thoughts. Yeah.
So you don't want to, like, translate it or bring it into physical form? Or
yeah, it has to be somehow a thing. But that the thing can behave differently than we're used to. It doesn't have to be like the four walls, and the four walls make an object, because I think the object is going to somehow change as we start to virtualize it and splice it with other stuff and reference it here, and
I don't know, but
the way we relate to the object or can think about or see it can be different. Yeah, so that's what I think could be interesting, but I don't know what is it. Yeah. and it's not the stuff we know. It's not landscape or urban planning or public space or
on the other hand side, it could be everything also. Is there something more we want to discuss today, or you wanted to share something with our audience?
I think that for 25 years I've been so focused on architecture and thinking about architecture, and I really honestly, sincerely believe that this school is a very, very good environment for that, and what it offers. I think it's analogous to what I was trying to say. From all these different points of view, you're getting bits and pieces, and the student can absorb all of it. So I enjoy being here, and I think it's a good environment for thinking. Yeah.
And hopefully also for producing.
Well, yeah, you have to do that.
Indeed. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for being part of it, and děkujeme vám za váš čas a těšíme se na příští podcast. Naschledanou.